They say hindsight is 20/20ths, but I swear, the first red flag was waving like a drunken uncle at a barbecue, and I still missed it. It started on our 11th anniversary. I booked a cozy spot at this little Italian place downtown, rustic, candlelit, smells like garlic and memories. I even shaved. You know it's serious when a man voluntarily drags a razor across his face. I got there early. Figured I'd surprise her with a bouquet of her favorite tulips, the pink ones that always made her smile like she knew a secret nobody else did. I ordered her usual glass of Pinot Grigio and mine neat, like my patience. Then I waited. And waited. 30 minutes later, the tulips looked sad and so did the waiter. I checked my phone. No texts. No missed calls. Just a single read receipt on the last thing I'd sent her that afternoon. You'll love this place. I got us the booth by the window. At the 45-minute mark, I left the tulips on the table and walked out. I drove home with the kind of tight jaw only a dentist could appreciate. Her car wasn't in the driveway. Lights off. House silent. But on the fridge, a sticky note in her bubbly, carefree handwriting read, "Had to stay late. Rain check." I stared at that note like it owed me an explanation. Had to stay late? On our anniversary? This wasn't a dentist appointment. It was 11 years, 2 cats, 3 moves, and 1,000 shared Sunday mornings kind of day. But I let it go. Because that's what you do when you're in love with someone who's been your whole world since before Spotify knew your taste in music. I microwaved leftover lasagna, poured myself a second glass of Pinot, and went to bed before she got home. Looking back, that was the night I should have known. But I didn't. The next morning, she acted like nothing happened. "Sorry about last night," she said, her voice sweet but distracted as she flipped pancakes like a woman with nothing to hide. Work was chaos. Jenkins needed the quarterly report yesterday, and you know how he is, like a caffeinated vulture. She kissed my cheek. Syrup-scented guilt, maybe. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But her laptop was still warm when I walked past it that morning. And she doesn't bring work home. Not unless she's trying to prove something to Jenkins. Or maybe to me. We sat down for breakfast. She told me about her coworker's new puppy. I told her the lasagna wasn't as good the second time around. We laughed. It felt real. Almost. But something was off. She kept checking her phone, even though she tried to hide it behind the napkin holder. And she had this habit, this tiny, telltale thing she did when she lied. She blinked too slowly. Like her eyelids were buying time her brain couldn't afford. She blinked like that 3 times before finishing her orange juice. Still, I didn't push it. Because pushing leads to cracks, and cracks let things fall through. And once you let doubt in, it's hard to keep anything else out. Instead, I went to work. Tried to focus. Tried to be normal. But that sticky note stayed with me all day. Had to stay late. Rain check? It felt convenient. So that night, after she fell asleep on the couch pretending to watch some crime documentary, I opened her phone. Not to snoop? Okay, maybe to snoop, but only because I had a gut feeling, and guts don't lie. Nothing obvious. No hearts or kissy emojis. Just one number that kept showing up. No name. Just a number. Over and over. And always in the evening. I screenshotted it, sent it to myself, and closed the phone before she stirred. Then I sat there for hours, in the quiet, wondering whether the man who brings you tulips and lasagna gets replaced, or just forgotten. I don't know what kind of man hires a private investigator. I used to think it was the paranoid kind, the controlling kind, maybe the ones with too much money and not enough trust. Turns out, it's the kind of man who finds a nameless number on his wife's phone and watches her smile at texts she won't explain. I found a guy named Ed, retired cop, wore polos tucked into jeans like it was still 1998 and had a voice like gravel dipped in coffee. Ed didn't ask questions. Just took the number and said, "Give me 3 days." It took him 2. He met me at a diner just off the freeway. The kind with fake wood paneling and the same waitress who's been calling everybody Han since before I could walk. I slid into the booth. Ed was already there, stirring sugar into a coffee that probably tasted like ash and heartbreak. He pushed a manila envelope across the table. "You sure you want to open this?" I stared at it. It looked small, inconspicuous, like it held receipts, or maybe a parking ticket. Not the collapse of a marriage. But I opened it. Photos. First one. Her. Laughing, mid-bite of some cafe sandwich. Across from her, a man. Tall. Hair too perfect. The kind of face that belongs in shampoo ads and bad decisions. They were sitting close. Too close. Next photo. Them. Walking out. his hand resting casually on the small of her back like he'd done it 100 times. Maybe he had. Last photo, them kissing. Not a peck. Not a mistake. A kiss full of history I hadn't been invited to. I stared at the images until the waitress set down a fresh pot and asked if I needed anything. Just the truth, I said without looking up. Ed sipped his coffee. Name's Carter. Divorced. Used to work with your wife at her last job. Guess they reconnected. I nodded. Didn't say anything. The worst part wasn't the kiss. It was the timestamp in the corner. Same night she left me sitting at that Italian restaurant. Same night the tulips wilted in the booth while I told the waiter she must be running late. You ever look at someone you love and realize you don't recognize the shape of their smile anymore? That was me the next morning. Sitting across the kitchen island from a woman I'd vowed to spend my life with, watching her hum while slicing strawberries like she hadn't just detonated our marriage with a kiss caught on camera. I didn't say anything. Not yet. See, once you know, really know, it becomes a waiting game. You want to see if they'll come clean, if guilt will win over arrogance. Or maybe you just want to see how well they can lie with syrup on their fingers and your name in their mouth. Sleep okay? She asked. Like a baby, I said. She smiled. Same one she gave Carter in the photos. The one that used to be mine. Maybe it still was. Maybe she was passing it around like leftover pie. I stirred my coffee. No sugar. My hands were steady, but inside, I was chaos. Not the loud kind, though. Not rage. No, this was quieter. Meaner. The kind of anger that doesn't yell. It sharpens knives and waits by the door. I spent that day like a ghost in my own house. Watched her pack a gym bag, leave in a hurry, toss up "love you" over her shoulder like it still meant something. I nodded, kissed her forehead, played the part, and then I followed her. She didn't go to the gym. She went to him. An apartment complex near downtown. Second floor, red curtains. I watched from the parking lot, parked 2 rows back, engine off. I saw her knock twice. I saw him open the door with that smug shampoo commercial face. I saw her smile. They didn't even hesitate. Like I didn't exist. Like 11 years, 2 cats, and Sunday pancakes were a deleted scene in someone else's movie. I didn't stay long. Didn't need to. I had the photos. I had Ed. I had everything I needed. But more importantly, I had time. That night, she came home with that flushed face. The kind people get from good cardio or good secrets. She peeled off her jacket, tossed her shoes by the door, and said, "You ever notice how awful the parking is at the gym?" I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was rehearsed. Because I could hear the echo of that same line being fed to her by Carter while she slid her arms back into her coat and wiped his cologne off her neck. Yeah, I said. Those lots are tight. We ate dinner. I told her about my day. She told me about spin class. I nodded. She smiled. It was a performance, and we were both giving Tony Award-winning monologues. That night in bed, she curled into me, laid her head on my chest like she hadn't given it to someone else just hours earlier. And I held her. Steady. Calm. See, I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to storm out or start smashing dishes. No, that's not how this ends. When someone lights your house on fire, you don't fight with a squirt gun. You build a new one. Then you invite the arsonist over for dinner. The next few weeks were quiet. Too quiet. But I needed it that way. I let her keep lying. Let her laugh. Let her send texts in the bathroom with the water running like I didn't know what she was doing. I let her have her little affair because I was building something better. Not a new relationship. Not a new life. A plan. It started with the finances. I quietly transferred half our savings into an account with just my name on it. Not illegal. Just smart. I combed through every line of our assets, every shared bill, every little detail. She never noticed. Then I got a lawyer. A good one. One of those calm types with steel eyes and a voice that could lull a cobra into a coma. I handed over the photos, the texts, everything Ed had collected. He didn't ask if I wanted revenge. He asked how clean I wanted it. Clean, I said. Like she never existed. We filed the paperwork, served under seal. A little legal trick that lets you prep a divorce without tipping off your soon-to-be ex. Everything would hit her at once: papers, asset freezes, and a letter detailing every one of her lies, neatly bound with the time-stamped photos on top. I also made a little project of my own, a slideshow. Her, Carter, the kisses, the texts, even one of her laughing as she sat in his lap. I scheduled it to play on our TV, midweek, synced with her smart home account, right after I moved out. But before I did that, I left her one final gift, an empty closet. See, I wasn't just walking out. I was walking up. It was a Wednesday when the storm hit. Fitting, really, middle of the week, middle of the month, middle of her lie. She came home like always. Gym bag swinging, humming like a woman who hadn't just betrayed everything she ever swore to protect. I wasn't there to greet her. My car was gone. My keys were gone. And so was every piece of me that used to live in that house. The place was spotless. Too spotless. No dirty dishes. No jacket over the chair. No note. Nothing out of place except for the silence. "Babe," she called out, dropping her bag by the door. No answer. She wandered through the living room, tossing her phone on the couch, kicking off her shoes. Then she saw the remote, centered on the coffee table, balanced perfectly on top of a thick envelope. Inside the envelope, her legal ambush, divorce papers, the PI photos, the bank statement showing the joint account balance now reading $0. And on top of it all, a USB drive. She clicked the TV on. The slideshow began automatically. First image, her and Carter at the cafe. She's smiling, leaning in. Next, a kiss. Full on. Hands everywhere. Timestamped, dated, documented. Then, a series of messages, transcribed cleanly. Her calling him, my escape, him replying with, he's so dull, you deserve excitement. One after another. Frame after frame. The truth projected in HD across our living room like a feature film. Only this time, she was the villain. And I was the closing credits. I wasn't there to see her reaction. I didn't need to be. Across town, I was at my brother's. Jake. Retired Marine, handyman, the kind of guy who fixes more with duct tape and bourbon than he ever could with therapy. When I showed up on his doorstep 2 weeks ago, suitcase in hand, he didn't ask questions. He just handed me a beer and said, "You finally done being stupid?" That was his version of, "I'm here for you." And honestly, I appreciated the efficiency. He had a spare room, a fridge full of leftovers, and a punching bag in the garage with Carter's name already written on it in Sharpie. For 2 weeks, I stayed quiet, stayed patient. Let the lawyer do her thing. Let the papers simmer like a slow-cooked revenge. Let her world keep spinning, until it didn't. By the time she finished watching that slideshow, her phone had already locked her out of the joint email. The bank? Frozen. Her car? Technically mine, also gone. I sold it that morning. The paperwork was already filed. You see, I didn't just leave. I dismantled. Not out of rage, but out of clarity. Cold, precise, surgical clarity. Some people fantasize about screaming matches or dramatic exits. Me? I like paperwork. Paper cuts hurt longer. Later that night, she called me. I didn't answer. She called again. Still nothing. She left a voicemail. Voice cracking. "Logan, I didn't know you knew. Please, can we talk? It's not what you think." I played it back for Jake. He snorted. "Not what you think," he muttered, shaking his head. "That's code for, I got caught, and I'm out of lifeboats." She sent texts. Apologies. Rationalizations. Promises. It was just a phase. It didn't mean anything. I was feeling lost, and he made me feel seen. "Please don't do this. Please." Each message was a nail. Not in her coffin. No, she'd already sealed that. They were nails in the door I'd already locked behind me. By Friday, the fallout had begun. Her sister called me. Said she was sobbing. Said she hadn't left the house. She made a mistake, her sister pleaded. "Don't throw away all those years." She didn't throw away the years, I replied. She lit them on fire and roasted marshmallows. My lawyer told me the house would likely end up in my hands. She hadn't contested the prenup. Probably too stunned. Or maybe she thought I'd come crawling back. Either way, her defense was silence. I gave her until Monday to move out. After that, the locks would change. And that was generous. She didn't respond. Instead, she posted a photo. One of those vague, black and white ones with a quote about healing and learning and loving yourself through the pain. Jake sent it to me with the caption, "Is that before or after she cheated on you with a walking bottle of hair gel?" I laughed. First time in weeks. Monday came. She didn't move out. But she wasn't there either. I showed up with the locksmith, changed every lock on that house. My house now. I went room to room, cleared out everything she left behind, took down the wedding photo, packed away the gifts, burned the sticky note from the anniversary night. She left a few things, some books, old makeup, one of her scarves. I boxed it all up, dropped it on her sister's porch. No note. No goodbye. Because at this point, what else was there to say? That night, I stood in the center of the empty living room. Just me and the walls. Quiet, but not hollow. Not anymore. And I realized something. I didn't need revenge. I was the revenge. Her lie unraveled her own life. All I did was take back mine. It had been a week since I reclaimed my house. Not with a sledgehammer or a bonfire, mind you, though I'd be lying if I said I didn't picture both. No, I reclaimed it the way every wronged man in a three-piece suit should, quietly, thoroughly, and with notarized documentation. And now that I had peace, I intended to enjoy it. That is, until Carter walked into my office. Yeah, him. I work for a mid-sized commercial real estate firm. Good job, solid pay, nothing flashy, until your wife's secret boyfriend struts in wearing a blazer 2 sizes too tight and a smile that looked stapled on. I was at my desk, finalizing paperwork for a development project, when Brenda from reception buzzed me. Logan? There's a Mr. Carter Wells here for the 10 o'clock appointment. I blinked. Thought it was a joke. The name hit my ears like a slap made of syllables. Carter Wells. I repeated. Yes, sir. He said it's regarding the Oceanside Plaza lease review. I nearly laughed. Of course it was. Of course fate had a clipboard, a sense of irony, and a grudge with my name on it. Send him in. The door opened, and there he was. Tall. Crisp. The same haircut from the surveillance photos. He looked like the love child of a dating app profile and a GQ ad. Logan, he said, like we were old friends reconnecting over coffee instead of mortal enemies connected by my wife's lipstick. Carter, I said coolly. Pleasure. He extended a hand. I didn't take it. Instead, I gestured to the seat across from me. Sit. Let's talk business. To his credit, he didn't flinch. He sat, opened a leather folder, and began pitching his company's proposal to lease 3 office suites at our newest development. Polished. Prepared. But here's the kicker. The firm he was representing? Owned by his older brother, a man I'd once played golf with. Carter was clearly trying to step into the family business and likely thought this deal would cement him as a rising star. He was wrong. I let him talk for 15 minutes. Let him show charts and smile that smug, toothpaste commercial grin. I nodded in all the right places. Even offered him coffee. Warmed up the room. Then I closed his folder slowly, like I was wrapping a gift. Carter, I said, tone measured, I appreciate the presentation. I do. But I'm afraid we won't be moving forward. His smile wavered. Oh, it's a values issue, I said, with all the fake corporate sincerity I could muster. We like to partner with firms that demonstrate integrity. And frankly, after reviewing your, personal conduct, we've decided it's not a good fit. He blinked, confused. Then his brow furrowed as realization hit like a freight train made of guilt. This is about her. I smiled, small, controlled, and devastating. No, Carter. This is about me. He leaned back in his chair. That's petty. That's strategic. She came to me, Logan, and I'm sure you gave her directions. Right into a hotel bed. He flinched. Good. That was the first honest reaction I'd seen from him. I'm building something here, he said, lowering his voice. This deal could have been important. Then maybe, I said, standing, you shouldn't have started your rise to the top by crawling through someone else's marriage. He stood too, folder forgotten. You think you're better than me? No, I said. I know I'm better than you. Because I didn't need to lie, sneak, or play second string to someone else's wife to find value in myself. He turned to leave. Paused at the door. She's miserable without you, he muttered, almost like he didn't mean for me to hear it. I didn't respond. Just waited for the door to shut. Then I laughed. Not bitter. Not angry. Just free. That night, she called again. 6th time that week. I still hadn't answered a single one. But I played the voicemails, because part of me needed to hear it. Logan, I miss you. I made a mistake. Carter isn't who I thought he was. I was confused. I was stupid. Please, can we talk? Her voice cracked. There were pauses. Real ones. The kind of silences people fall into when they finally realize they're standing in an empty room holding a match and a gas can. Please, she whispered. Just call me. I deleted the message. Then I poured a drink, sat on my back porch, and watched the sky go dark with the same kind of satisfaction you get when the final puzzle piece clicks into place. She had Carter. Then she didn't. She had her life. Then she broke it. Now, all she had were missed calls and unanswered prayers. And me? I had peace. And a front row seat to her undoing. I wasn't trying to ruin her life. Let's just get that straight. I wasn't out to torch the village. I was just walking away from the fire she started. What happened after I left? That was gravity doing its thing. I just stepped aside. But gravity has a sense of humor. I found out 2 days later that Carter lost his job. Apparently, his brother, the actual CEO, didn't take kindly to losing a 7-figure lease deal due to ethical concerns. Especially after I forwarded him the photo slideshow. I didn't include a message, just one line in the subject. Thought you should know what your new VP was up to during office hours. Carter was out before Friday. Just like that. A falling star with a resume full of holes and a last name that no longer opened doors. But here's the kicker. He didn't tell her. No, she found out when she showed up at his condo with a suitcase and plans to start fresh, her words, not mine. She expected a key under the mat. What she got instead was a locked door and a text that said, "Not a good time. Going through some things." I don't know exactly what her face looked like when she read that, but I like to imagine it was somewhere between spoiled milk and tax audit. She tried calling me again. I didn't answer. I was at the gym, finally getting back to the version of myself I'd forgotten about. See, there's a certain magic that happens when you stop begging people to stay and start remembering who you were before they arrived. My lawyer texted me around noon. Everything's finalized. House is yours, bank account split. She signed without a fight. I stared at that message for a while. She didn't fight. Not because she didn't care, but because she couldn't. She'd already lost the war. The next week, I got an unexpected message. From her mother. Yeah, Sandra. Mid-60s, silver hair. Always smelled like lavender and judgment. For most of our marriage, she treated me like I was a very polite Labrador. Harmless. Obedient. Useful. Logan, I know this is awkward. But can we talk? I was tempted to ignore her. But curiosity, like karma, has a way of showing up uninvited. We met at a coffee shop. Neutral ground. She looked older. Not just in the face, but in the way she carried herself. Like the weight of her daughter's mistakes had shifted onto her spine. I'm not here to defend her, Sandra said, before I could even sit down. God knows she's done enough damage. I nodded, sipping my coffee. Waiting. I came to say thank you, she said. I blinked. Come again. You gave her more than she ever deserved. You were good to her. And I'm sorry. For what she did. And for the way I treated you. That was the first time Sandra had ever apologized to me. Ever. I sat there stunned, trying to match this woman to the one who used to snub my birthday cards with a half-hearted, "Oh, that's nice." She continued. After her father left, I warned her. I told her men don't always stay. And when she found you, I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd do better than I did. I didn't know what to say. So I didn't. She lost the best thing in her life, Sandra said. I steady. And I just wanted you to know, some of us did notice. I nodded. And for the first time since the whole house of cards collapsed, I felt something I hadn't in months. Closure. The days that followed were strangely quiet. No chaos. No screaming. No passive-aggressive post-it notes or emotionally manipulative text bombs. Just peace. I went back to hiking. Started reading again. I replaced the photos on the walls. Painted over the scuffed spots in the hallway where she used to lean when she lied. I even got a dog. Murphy. Golden retriever with too much energy and no understanding of personal space. He became my sidekick, my roommate, and the only living thing that cared whether I came home smelling like tacos or gym socks. One afternoon, I ran into Paul and Linda. Remember them? The traitorous friends who cheered her on while she publicly demolished our marriage? They were at the grocery store. Paul was pushing the cart. Linda was scanning cereal boxes like they were threats to national security. I walked past them, calm, smiling. Linda spotted me first. Her face turned white. Paul stiffened. Logan, she said, almost like a question. Linda, I replied. Paul. Awkward silence. Just the hum of freezer units and the gentle betrayal of old acquaintances. How have you been? She asked. I looked them both over. Tense. Sweaty. Defensive. Better, I said. Much better. Then I walked away. No theatrics. No confrontation. Just a well-timed pause at the checkout lane to let them watch me pay with peace and walk out with dignity. I hadn't spoken to her since the divorce was finalized. But one morning, a handwritten envelope showed up in my mailbox. No return address. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Her handwriting. Slanted, looping, always a little too dramatic. I didn't realize what I had until it was gone. But I know I don't deserve to ask you to forgive me. So I won't. That was it. No signature. No apology. Just a quiet confession scrawled on paper she probably cried over. I didn't respond. Didn't need to. Because some letters aren't meant to be answered. They're meant to be read, and then folded and burned. I wasn't looking for anyone new. Not in that classic hearts and flowers kind of way. I was learning how to enjoy the silence, the Sunday mornings, the gentle space between obligations. Murphy, my golden retriever, was the only creature I needed to make coffee for. Then came the knock on the door. A soft one, hesitant, like the person behind it wasn't sure if they were ready for the answer. I opened it to find Claire standing there. Claire lived 3 houses down. Divorced, early 40s, owned a garden that looked like it came with its own symphony. We'd spoken a few times, shared a laugh or two while raking leaves. She held a baking dish. I made lasagna, she said. Too much for just me. I raised an eyebrow. That's either an invitation or an ambush. She grinned. Depends on how good your garlic bread is. I let her in. We ate at the kitchen table where my ex-wife once said, forever. Claire didn't try to fill the space with compliments or small talk. She just ate, sipped her wine, and let silence breathe when it wanted to. People talk, she said after a while. I shrugged. They usually do. They say she cheated. That you walked away with everything. That you planned it all. I looked at her, waiting for judgment. Instead, she nodded. Good. That was it. Just one word. No pity. No lectures. Just a neighbor who brought food and didn't flinch at the truth. Claire didn't become my savior. That wasn't her job. She became something better. Normal. We walked our dogs together. We shared books. We had coffee on the porch without turning it into therapy. She didn't ask what went wrong. She asked what I was planting in the backyard. And somehow, that question healed more than any "I'm sorry" ever could. One evening, as the sun dropped low behind the trees, Claire looked over at me and said, "You seem lighter." I paused. Do I? Yeah. Like you put something heavy down. I nodded. I did. Her. The anger. The need to win. She smiled. You didn't win, Logan. You just stopped losing. There was truth in that. Because what I'd learned, slowly, painfully, was that revenge doesn't fix broken things. But clarity does. Peace does. Claire wasn't a rebound. She was a reflection. Proof that I could exist in someone's life without begging for space. The house didn't feel haunted anymore. The bed didn't feel too big. And for the first time in months, I slept with the window open, unafraid of the wind. 6 months passed. No new voicemails. No drama. No sightings. Until one morning, a letter arrived. This time, with a return address. From her. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't manipulative. It was quiet. I saw you with her. The woman with the dog. You looked happy. I don't want anything. I'm not writing to ask for another chance. I just want you to know I'm sorry. I ruined something good. I know that now. I thought love was supposed to feel like fireworks. But I think it's actually supposed to feel like quiet mornings and clean dishes and someone who knows how you take your coffee. I read it once. Then again. Then I folded it. I didn't need to respond. There was nothing left to say. She was right about one thing, though. Love isn't fireworks. Fireworks are loud. Dangerous. Beautiful but fleeting. Love is calm. Love is showing up. Love is lasagna from a neighbor who doesn't ask questions. I poured a cup of coffee, walked out to the porch, and watched the sky turn gold. Murphy curled at my feet. Claire joined me a few minutes later. No words, just presence. And that was enough. Because I wasn't rebuilding. I'd already rebuilt. And this time, the foundation didn't crack.